Hello, I'm Soika and welcome back to the third channel commentary style video. So this is something I want to do just a little bit because I want to practice my speaking at a microphone skills. This is something I want to do a little bit more of on the main channel as time goes on. Maybe it's a bad idea, maybe it's a good idea, but I figured I'd do just a little bit of practicing over here on the third channel so I could talk about something which has been bugging me just all day because I looked into it earlier today and I just keep looking more and more into it and just raising more and more questions. So I wanted to talk about health insurance in the UK, and honestly I want to talk about how you can overcomplicate pretty much anything if you really try. And maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, maybe it just proves that, everyone can have the same issues but deal with them in 1,000 different ways. I don't know what lesson you want to take from this, that's not my problem. And also, what's not my problem is the background gameplay. It'll probably be like Forza 7, just a game I know you don't care about, so I can, lure you into the speaking rather than the background gameplay. Because a black background looks kind of dull, but some gameplay of a game you don't care about, you can at least pretend to look at that. So, yeah, with that said, let's talk about health insurance in the UK. So, if you live in most countries around the world, at least most wealthy countries around the world, you probably have a system where, the health insurance is a known quantity. You can, if you spend more money, you will get a better quality of care. Although in some countries they claim that's not true, oh, everyone has health insurance and that insurance gives you the same treatments, like anything you need to survive, it's covered by that treatment. But it's well, I mean, they'll only cover some hospitals, and it's a well-known thing, especially in America. There are some really high-end hospitals. I've watched enough House, because House is a very realistic descriptor of the US medical system. I've watched enough House to know that if you spend money, you end up there. So yeah, if you're in a lot of countries, America's the famous example, it comes up all the time, but most countries have a system where you pay more money, you get better care. If you throw more money into the system, then you have a higher chance of living. And on the surface, that sounds like a terrible, terrible thing. Maybe it's not, we could discuss that, the ethics of that sometime, but it's like a thing where okay, in most countries you pay more money, you get better care. If you can pay more money and you think you're at risk of something, maybe you should pay the money. That's just a known quantity in most countries. But in the UK, it's not really quite so clear. So if you're not familiar, the UK has something called the National Health Service, the NHS, and although people try to shit talk it literally all the time, there is nothing but bad things being said about the NHS. At least, this is how it actually comes down to it. People ignore the actual facts of this situation. If they are someone who likes the private healthcare system in other countries, they'll say it's terrible, it's failing in the streets, there are people that have to be treated out in an alleyway between two buildings. And if you're in favor of, a universal healthcare system, you compliment the heck out of it. Again, the problem with the internet these days is, apparently now, other countries' issues are your issues. So, oh, we'll talk about the situation in Sweden, and I'll talk about the gun issue in America, which I understand so well from my home in London. But yeah, it's this whole problem where, okay, so in the UK we have an NHS system, and it does work fairly well. I hear that's area dependent. There are some, places where it won't work, but it does work reasonably well. However, if you work, especially a high-end job, a lot of high-end jobs give as a reassuring care thing. You can get private health insurance, and also if you're willing to just drop the money yourself, you can get private health care as just a nice piece of reassurance, because maybe you think oh, it won't ever happen, but maybe I should. Whatever the reason is, you can buy health insurance, and it works more like insurance. In America it's oh yeah, you buy it or you go bankrupt or die. In other countries it's the same sort of thing. In the UK it's well, you definitely will be covered, you won't have to die, but if you want to get seen faster, if you have an outpatient issue, if you want to have different things be done faster, most things are covered by this. I think actually emergency, the emergency room is what it's internationally known as, but accident and emergency is not covered by it, which is incidentally the worst part of the public system. So that's not covered by private healthcare. But I think most other things, if you want an operation, a surgeon, etc., you can buy the private stuff. And the fact that you can buy your own health insurance, cover your sort of stuff, is a really weird thing that I feel like most UK citizens aren't familiar with. I was shocked actually when I first learned, because when you live in a country like the UK and you learn that other countries pay for that stuff, it's wow, yeah, that's amazing. That's why you're seeing these kind of jilted opinions about yep, you pay more money or you die in other countries. That's why I have that opinion, because even knowing that you could pay with something I didn't know till recently. But once you do know that, it does leave the big, I guess, kind of reasoning of okay, so how much better can private healthcare really get you? I've been looking into it and I still really don't understand. Outpatient stays of up to a day. What does that even mean? Up to a day? Well, I don't understand all of these different terms. I'm not a medical expert because I'm young and therefore healthy and therefore don't get seen by doctors or whatever so much. But I guess basically it comes down to the big question of not knowing whether, buying this health insurance really helps you that much, because, it's hard to be certain. Like, maybe it does have better hospitals, better surgeons, etc. I don't know where these better hospitals exist. If they do, I haven't heard of one. And therefore, you're looking into, like, is it even going to extend my life? That's issue number one. Then there's issue number two that comes up immediately afterwards. If we assume it is, which I will for now because enough people buy it, it's like, okay, is that an effort? There's the ethical question of, should I be contributing to the private healthcare system versus the public one? So of course, the public one is funded by taxes. When I say free, I mean, publicly funded insurance, I guess, that isn't insurance based. It's just free at the point of use or whatever. But yeah, basically, so I'm already contributing to that. I contribute significantly more than is probably average, if I had to guess. Fun fact. But yeah, basically, so if I'm already contributing to that system. So if I buy private health insurance, that's great, because now I won't be using that system unless I absolutely need to. So is that an improvement, or is it the opposite? By buying private health insurance, I'm expanding the private market. I'm helping to start the expectation that if you want good care or better care, you should pay money to someone, and therefore, because all the best nurses, as I understand, I don't understand for sure. I just have a friend with a nurse mother, and my mother is a nurse. But it's like, oh yeah, the good money is in private, and the public money is in, the government stuff. So it's like, you got to ask the big questions, like, so is it even an ethical thing? And this is before we've really gone anywhere. It's just asking the big questions of, does this make sense, and should I get it? It's just not an easy thing. Even recapping, like, all of these thoughts that have been going on all day, it's taken me, 6 minutes? It's hard to even raise the questions of, like, is this better? How is this better? Is it an okay thing if it's better? Am I helping the country if I do this, or am I hurting it? I've said before, but it's a good idea to, like, try and evaluate the impact you have if it's an easy enough thing to do. In this case, it's not. Like, are you helping the world or hurting the world by not using the government service in a particular case like this, where you want that government service to be the best it can be? I don't know the answer to that question. I just know shrug shoulders and be done with it. You also have the big questions of, like, well, should you have to pay for the system if you buy private as well? But we won't go through all of that because that's almost politics. So yeah, that's the big issues of, like, is that even a thing you should get? But if I just assume yes for the purpose of, like, okay, we'll move on and then we can come back to this later maybe, because ethics is you can come back to that. Is this viable? Well, we can always loop around to that some other time after, like, talking with someone about it maybe. But then comes the issue of, like, okay, I'm gonna work out how much it costs, because it's a lot easier to make a decision for spending £2 a month versus £2,000 a month. I mean, if it was £2,000 a month, then, like, I don't know what I'd expect from it, but it'd have to be pretty darn great. So I look into, like, okay, how much does health insurance cost? And it's like, okay, so £27 for, like, the bare minimum. And if you want, like, a good, the comprehensive cover, as it's called, because there's levels of cover, because you better believe there is, with excess charges and oh my god, then it's like, okay, so that costs somewhere between £56 and £60 if I want to get the comprehensive cover for my stuff. So it's like, okay, therefore you have to question, like, which tier of healthcare do you want? If you're buying healthcare, if you're buying this thing as a plan to, like, maybe this will save my life one day, should you cheap out on it? Should you go for the minimum package? I don't know for sure, like, maybe you should. Or should you get the one that covers, like, oh, psychiatric treatment? That sounds great. Travel insurance. I travel a lot, even though I already have travel insurance. Two travel insurances is better than one, right? So it's like, oh my god, there's two tiers of health insurance. How does anyone decide how much to spend on their health, right? Like, I don't understand the slightest, but let's just say, we go over the £60 stuff because I'm like, my body is worth everything. But then £60 a month is like, that's a lot. Like, to put that in perspective, over a year, that's £720. I mentioned recently, I don't buy Netflix. Netflix is $7.99 a month in the UK. I don't buy that because I hate subscription services that much. This is a subscription service to health, and it's like, you expect me to, like, buy stuff to look after my mental and physical health. I don't even buy probably one of the best value subscription services out there. This sounds like an ad now, but I don't even buy Netflix. They've got all the Rick and Mortys. They've got Friends these days. They've got a bunch of original programming that I quite enjoy. Again, this I don't know why this seems like an ad, but if I don't buy Netflix for 1/8 the price, it's like, I think the value to my life that Netflix adds is probably more than 1/8 of the value I'll get from healthcare. Because realistically, over the next year, I'd maybe think about it once, and then it would be draining the money the whole time. So that's £720 in spend that I have to kind of, like, try and work out, I guess, like, how to maximize the use of it. Because if I don't use it all, I'd be going in for psychiatric sessions. Like, might as well have someone to talk to, see if they can dive into some issues in my brain. Might as well go in a few times, a week, just, like, see if I'm still healthy. Every now and then, you have that feeling where you're like, oh, am I having a brain tumor, or is that just waking up in the morning? Like, you know, I have these issues all the time. I need to drink like 2 liters of water on like a normal day, and like, you know, sometimes like 3 or 4 if it's even slightly hot outside. Is that normal? Should I get that looked into? Like, it's like, okay, so now like my health becomes like a job as well as a thing I'm spending money on just to get the value out of it. Should I try like, you know, like Netflix? What I do is I buy the trial, or like I'll use a trial and then buy it for like a month every now and then. Should I stop and start this healthcare to get the max value out of it? Can you do that? Probably not. Can I use it for a month? Go for like non-stop psychiatric sessions, going for everything else? No, that's probably going to hurt you in the long run. So it's like, okay, maximizing your value from this, you can't really do. You've just got to leave it in the background and hope it comes up sometime. But if I leave it for long enough, what if I don't remember it comes up? I've done this like a fair number of times. Maybe this is like something you shouldn't say, but like sometimes, like if let's say I convert money for a trip and then the trip is like 8 months away, I'll forget I have, you know, that 10 euros on my desk, and I won't bring the euros to Germany or wherever I go. Or for instance, I always put a micro USB cable in my bag now, but I always forget it's there, and sometimes I have this big panic trying to find a place to plug in. And I'll admit, I bought a micro USB cable on the road because I just assumed I didn't have one. I needed to charge my phone, or I guess USB-C these days. And it's like, what if I do that with health insurance? What if it's like, I've got kidney failure. Wish I'd bought the private health insurance. What if it's been ticking along the whole time? They don't know. It's not tattooed on me. I wouldn't want it tattooed on me. And basically, what I'm trying to say here is I made the decision. Maybe I'll revisit this sometime because I don't know for sure. But people say you can't put a price on a life, or you can't put a price on good health, or whatever else. But people do that. People put the price on there. They just want when people say you can't put a price on something, what they're really doing is they're calling you cheap. They're saying just spend the money. You can't. Like they're making it seem like, oh, society won't let you put a price on that. But you can. You can put a price on anything you like. And you know, as the great American health capitalist system shows, I guess it shows that like if you put in a lot of money, because you know, fun fact here, this is like again vaguely politics, but in the US there's like 3 times more money put in to get the same outcomes as the UK system, which seems on the surface like a big argument for single payer, and I would say it is. But the real side of that is the people who put in no money, they get really terrible outcomes, and the people who are throwing that, you know, triple as much money in, they're getting pretty good outcomes. So, you know, like you can spend more money on your health, and it will allow you to live longer on average with a better health outcome, etc. But people don't decide to do that. And you might say, they don't have the money, Toycat. And I get what you're saying, but the truth is everyone has access to money. Because we live in a world of so much credit, you can go on credit to get this, and it's better to have, you know, $1,000 or $10,000 in credit card debt and be alive than to not, right? But like, that's not a reasonable decision. You've put the money, you put the value on the money as being less than that. And I guess what I'm saying here is everyone is always making decisions about what they spend all the time. You know, there is disposable money and there's money that's already been disposed, I guess. But all money is allocatable anywhere. You can not pay your mortgage and decide to pay for healthcare instead. It's not a good idea. You can, but then if you have any amount of spare money and you're not spending on your health, arguably a bad idea. You can probably buy a surgeon on retainer. If you like mortgage your house, you nearly bankrupt yourself, you can buy a surgeon who's just like sit in the corner all day so that if you have any problems, you speak to him or he operates on you right there. Like, you know how there's it's called the golden rule or something, where if you can get a patient to the hospital in less than an hour from when they have a serious problem, their health outcome is so much higher. If there's a guy in your house, he's there 10 seconds after you have a problem. You have any idea how much they'll help you? But no one makes that decision. You can put price, or, you know, in fact, the value of a life, I think it's been listed before by like the UN, maybe the US, but one of those big united governments of some form has set, it could be the United Kingdom for all I know, has set the value for human life as like 7.2 million. It's single digit millions. That's the value for human life as far as the governments are concerned. I'm sure in like if you go to like sub-Saharan Africa, it's like $27 sounds about right to us. We have too many people, so $27 there is actually the reward for taking away a life, I guess. But this is going dark. Let's circle back down to healthcare. I guess you can't put a value on healthcare, but you can put a value on healthcare. And I guess I've decided that given that I don't even understand it, I think I'm gonna have to come back to this sometime, because it seems like it would go up at like so right now it's £27 for the lowest package. I'm assuming it doesn't last that my whole life. If I pay that from now to the day I die, I'm assuming that it would go up at some point, because I've never had anything insured besides my house, and my house is insured in like some. The only thing I know about my house, and I'm gonna regret saying this if it ever does burn down. So let's pray that it doesn't. But it's insured as like I can have 15,000 in cash just lying around the house, and like that's insured if it all burns. And it's like if my house does burn and there's not 15,000 in cash, should I say there is? And you know, that's, I guess, insurance fraud with Toycat. That's what we're using today. But yeah, I don't understand insurance. Medical insurance is like 10 times more confusing, and you can't put a value on your life, but we can, and I did. And it looks like, to me at least, that it's less than £720 a year. So with that said, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Make sure that you give it a like if you liked it, because I make terrible commentary videos not very frequently, maybe not ever again on this channel, and you can subscribe to not see those daily on your Not homepage. I'm actually going to be working on some Geography of Toycat videos on the second channel. Honestly, the funny thing is, the reason this channel exists is because that channel became a real thing, so I couldn't just upload garbage. Because I have this real desire to upload stuff that I see as garbage. Like, it it doesn't make any sense. Like, I do something because I love it, but I know it's subjectively terrible. This for instance, what value did you even get, you know? Like, if you live in the UK, I mean, you're probably never gonna want or need health insurance. And if you did, then now you know it's £720 a year, and I think I'm healthy. I'm not a smoker, I didn't have diabetes or all the other boxes that it asked me to tick. And if you don't live in the UK, then I probably criticised your health system. Or if you live in Africa, now you're really angry because I made a comment about overpopulation. You know, that, like, I don't think this provided any value to anyone, but I wanted to practice my speaking skills. There's a few videos like this I've been intending to do from time to time, so let me know what you think. Just random commentary of Toycat, because the Toycat podcast is an idea I love. I wish there was a way for that to be viable, but there just isn't. Like, podcasting and audio commentary and stuff, it's really cool, it's really helpful. You've been listening to this while you did something else, and I am glad that I could add to that niche in your life, but it's like, you gotta work out, like, podcast advertisers, and that's like a whole mess. I don't want to, like, the less human interaction I can get in my life, the better I'm doing, in my opinion. So that's off the table. It's like, what, fund it with donations, and you know, one, you've got to hope that there's enough people out there that can donate for it, and two, you've got to somehow like hope that goes on over time. So it's like, oh, you gotta like do like a subscription thing. And it's like, oh, that's Patreon then, isn't it? So it's, I mean, I guess yeah, what I'm really saying here is Toycat podcast, cool idea. But for now, I'll just keep doing random videos talking about stuff like this. Hope you all enjoyed it. Give me feedback in the comments. And don't you dare bring up politics. I think I said something vaguely about health outcomes and about how Americans comment on European politics and act like they're like deeply familiar with the situation. But again, British people do have Americans or Europeans with the whole like, you know, the gun issue. And it's like, well, I mean, you're talking about pretty cultural issue there. And you know, should we talk about guns sometime? Like, wouldn't that be great? Should we do that? Let me know in the comments down below. Like, just full on politics of Toycat. I'm not going to do it, sorry. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Second channel, or third channel. Don't care. Bye.